Well, hello everyone. This is Marcel, and on the screen to my left or right is Mike, and we are responsible for AI over at Vacuumlabs. Fundamentally, what that means is I'm more of the talking head, the evangelist, and Mike is the practitioner. Although I can write some code, but Mike will probably throw out all the code and redo it himself, right?
Most of the times, but at least we have something to begin with, so that's a
Yes,
really
exactly.
nice thing to have.
But we've been getting questions since we've now been working with the latest generations of AI, both LLMs and MLs, for the past couple of years. We've now been getting questions from all of you on sort of what we were experiencing, how we're doing things, and so on. So we obviously wanted to do this sort of session to share all of that with you. And if you have any follow-up questions, please put them into the chat because obviously that's why we're here. We want to answer them and we want to get to the bottom of all of this. So I think we already have our first question here, which is a really, really fun one, which I think is probably applicable to you, Mike. And the question is fine-tuning open source models worth it, or should I just use GPT-4 and move on?
That's a really good question, and it highly depends on what you are trying to do, because usually people think about like what do I want to achieve and how to achieve that, and generally fine-tuning should be your last resort because it is financially draining, and it is complicated. You need to have a lot of data. You need to have data science teams or people that look at the data, because if you screw up the data set, the fine-tuning will be worthless or maybe even dangerous. So the ultimate response is yes, fine-tuning is viable, but it should be a last resort. There are many things you can do before that. For example, you can have vector databases and racks in place. There you can have agentic workflows that do the reasoning behind what you are trying to achieve. But even before you do anything with that, and I can't stress this enough, the data is alpha and omega, and you definitely need to be aware of what it is you are trying to achieve. Because this is like, I see that generally in our clients, is that they don't understand really what they are trying to achieve and why. And there we are there to help them with finding that out and exploring the problems that they have, or maybe underlying issues they don't yet see. So that's that. So yes, fine-tuning is viable, but definitely should be a last resort.
Very good. The next question we have today is from Lena, and I think I'll take this one here. So how do companies figure out if their AI projects are actually paying off? Well, the fundamental thing with anything you ever do in business, this is applied for building any sort of software, but also building any sort of technology, is you always need to have a business case for doing things. For the past 2 years, people have been playing around with AIs, especially with the LLM style, which is the ChatGPT type, but it was very much playing. It was separate individual teams that were trying things out. Some of them were more successful, some of them were less successful. So just like with any projects, all of these AI initiatives are now joining together and becoming something that is not just an experiment, but it's actually something that's trying to at first prototype a solution to a problem, but then actually build a full production ready system that actually is paying off. And it's difficult to say how to measure the impact, but I think the best way to begin is to look at whatever processes you're already doing, take into account the number of people that are required, the amount of time that is required, and compare whatever system you're prototyping and building to that. So don't think of the AI systems as a deterministic technology, something that works perfectly every single time. Measure it against the capabilities and the speed of humans. If it performs on the level of a human, which many of these LLMs can for many different use cases, consider that a successful implementation. And it's very likely that the amount that you're paying for people, offices, and things to achieve a specific goal is going to be more expensive than the LLMs and the AIs. Try to build that business case around how many more things I can achieve, or how much faster something will be because I'm now using LLMs. But this is on a case-by-case basis, and this is why we preferred going the route of first prototyping, understanding the problem, trying to see, on a small scale whether LLMs can fix this and how they can fix it, and only then can we move on to writing the business case. So the benefit of all of this is you actually have something that works. It's small, but you can then write the full business case for it, as opposed to just playing around and seeing if something works or doesn't work. And we have another question. Thank you guys for popping all of these in. So here we have a question from Tom, and it's almost perfectly for you, Mike, here. So are vector databases actually necessary, or can something like Elasticsearch handle it?
Again, highly depends. Like, vector database is another tool, and you wouldn't use a hammer to unscrew a light bulb, would you? So that's like, again, as the previous question, it really depends on what you are trying to achieve. Because vector databases, you can just chunk your data, chunk the text you are searching in and put it in. But again, you want to think about what I want to search in the data, what is the nature of the data I'm trying to put in the vector database. So using Elasticsearch can be a first option. The next step could be vector database, but the vector database is not answer to every question. It might even be that the vector database will not be enough for you. You can then use graph databases with knowledge graphs, but that really you have to think about the amount of work you have when you are dealing with one or the other, how much it will cost, and what is the ROI. That's pretty good thing to think about, and we as programmers usually don't think about these things. So no, you don't need to go full vector database, but think about the nature of the problem before you choose the solution you apply.
Yeah, and this is all about also storage, right? So
yes,
the nature of data is different for every single organization, and
exactly.
like you mentioned, knowledge graphs, and they sound great, but when you actually start working with them, they introduce a lot of problems that you can probably just use Elasticsearch or traditional SQL for.
Exactly. Highly depends on what on the nature and the format of the data you have.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have another question here from John or Jan. So, why is AI code generation so hyped when the output still feels weak?
If I got a penny every time I got asked, I am asked this question. Well, I will die on this hill, and the hill is the power of, or the output of code generation is as big as your capability to talk to LLMs. And um, in Vacuumlabs, we've been pretty successful with generating production quality code, actually. But it requires a change of mindset and change of way of work. And there are multiple things you can start doing right away. And first is, if you use the AI first IDEs like Cursor or Windsurf, they have these things called rules. At least they are called rules in Windsurf. I'm not sure how they are called in Cursor, but there's something similar. And what it is basically a place where you can instruct the LLM to generate the code in a specific style, or you can imagine it as a general prompt that is applied to every request you give it. So there are multiple sites where you can already download specific rules based on the tech stack that you use. There are pretty ones for Django. There are really nice ones for React and stuff like that. So this is the first step. Basically, if you would write that rule on your own, you can have there things like the general stuff, like break the code down to single purpose methods or functions, comment every function, but don't comment it the usual way where you explain the code. Comment why the function is there. What's the business case behind that function? What purpose does it serve? And that's the first thing, the rule set. Then you have MCP servers, and you can have MCP servers like Context7, where basically Context7 is a huge database of documentation for different frameworks with code snippets. And when you use it, you can see, like when I instructed instruct the LLM to write a specific function or a class, it starts searching, like, okay, I'm using Django and I'm trying to achieve this and that, and I have this framework or this library that I'm using, and it starts to search the Context7 libraries, and it figures out, like, this is the correct way how to implement this feature or how to use this tool. So these two things are really basic stuff you can do, and it will really improve the code that you generate with the LLM. And you can even push it a little further with something that I call documentation-based development. And basically, what you are trying to do is to document as much of the business and technical side of the project that you are trying to generate as possible. And you can start with some specification of the problem that you received from your client or from the analyst or anywhere, basically, and you can then process it directly in Windsurf or Cursor to specify what are what's the functional specification, what's the business case behind the solution, what are the the technical side, like what's the architecture. And you want to document as much of these things as possible. Have all the documents ideally in Markdown in the project, and you want to have them in separate files. Like you don't want to have one file for everything. You want to have different file for business, for architecture, for model specification, and then the windsurf or cursor can work with these specification and give it much more context about what you are trying to generate. And these things really bring the value in CodeGen.
On a really sort of fundamental level, I think what I'm hearing from you is it's very similar to like having less senior people on your team. If you give them bad instructions, if you give them bad goals, bad tasks, bad stories,
Yes.
the output isn't going to be that great. And I really love the analogy you mentioned in one meeting the other day, which is LLMs are highly intelligent, but they're really low in wisdom. You need to give them wisdom. You need to tell them why and what they need to achieve.
Exactly.
Maybe we can talk about that a little bit more because I really love that sort of analogy.
Yeah, and that this is an analogy for my D&D homies out there, and that I don't know if you are familiar, all of you guys that are here, with the D&D terminology, but basically you have these stats that, or D&D is a game where you play as a character that you create, and there are some mechanics in which you can describe the character and character's abilities, and you have different stats that describe the basic ones, and one of those is intelligence, and the other is wisdom. Basically, what intelligence is to know that a tomato is a fruit, and wisdom is to know that you are not supposed to put tomato in a fruit salad. And LLMs generally are high intelligence, low wisdom characters. So they have all the knowledge that you can have, basically, but they lack the common sense. So, in a way, what you mentioned is that it's like talking to a less senior colleague, and it's not like basically, but not entirely, because usually even lesser or colleagues with lower seniority have some sort of a common sense. So if you give them bad instruction, they go, "What do you mean? This doesn't make sense." The LLM doesn't do this. It just makes you happy, and that's what the purpose of LLM is, to make you happy.
Well, to be fair to LLMs, they're getting better at it. With reasoning
Exactly.
models and so on, they are getting significantly more wisdom than 2 years ago. But there's still that fundamental issue of, well, it's trying to make you happy. It's trying to predict what you expect it to say.
Exactly.
So it's almost like you need to tell it things like, tell me I'm wrong. Those sorts of things, for it to actually do it. And we could talk for hours about this. So probably we have more questions. So let's pop on into the next one. But if you have any further questions, please send them over to us anywhere you're seeing this video, and we're happy to sort of answer them, or maybe do a deep dive on this sort of wisdom intelligence thing. So the next question is, AI is being pushed everywhere. What recurring headaches have you noticed in the market? And Mike, if you don't mind, I'll take this one. So I think they fall into three general categories. One we've already alluded to, and it seems to be the thing that many companies are struggling with, which is how do we use AI to build things faster? whether that's code or products or product designs. And there's now tools for many of these things. Mike already mentioned Windsurf and Cursor for engineers, but there's also Lovable, Replit, Bolt, and others for product managers, and so on and so forth. Figma is adding new features. Photoshop and Adobe products have been adding new features. So these things are coming in. I won't go into the details of how to solve all of that. We already touched on that as well, but that's a huge topic. So it's a huge headache. So we have a huge team of engineers and product people and whatever, and we need to teach them. So that's one big headache. What tools do we adopt? Which ones do we start with? Which ones don't we use? How expensive are they, and so on. So the big topic of sort of internal usage for building things. The second big topic is how do we actually do all of this AI stuff properly? So, I mean, the maybe official corporate term would be governance and architecture and that sort of thing. But really, it's we hear this all the time now. We've been playing around with AIs for years now or months now, and we have these cool things and they do really cool things, but we have duplication of code all over the place, or we have the same functionality built 4 different ways, but it's same but different. So really introducing this sort of more strategic overview of how does AI fit into an organization, and this could be, from a smaller business all the way to a large bank. We are all together trying to figure out how we do these things. And earlier Mike mentioned MCP, which is a new protocol, the Model Context Protocol, which came out in November of last year, which now most LLMs have adopted. And to put it simply, it's just a way for LLMs to, in a systematic and standardized way, connect to other systems. They might be other LLMs, but they also might be other systems like some sort of search within your thing, your Google Drive, whatever. But they could also be, there are new protocols emerging as well for agent to agent, so LLM to LLM communication. And there will be more. So I think what we're doing, one thing that is a recurring challenge, but also something, or headache, but something that we now seem to have a solution for. And as the industry figures this out, we'll be there with it, is how does governance and architecture and general sort of strategic implementation of AI fit into the broader, not only IT space, but also the business ownership space within an organization. So that's topic 2. So code gen and product gen. Second topic, governance. And third topic, and this is something that I feel is again repeating across the people we talk to, which is how do we use this AI to upsell to people? And this could be in many different ways. This could be selling more to existing customers, which is traditional upselling, but also how do we approach those customers that we maybe had in the past with a message or with a communication that is now super relevant to them. And again, LLMs can be really helpful. LLMs and machine learning can be really helpful in moving the needle forward. So it's not just about cost saving, which is what we've talked about and what often gets talked about, like, oh, how many people can AI replace? But rather, how can AI bring more revenue into the company? So 3 categories. We could talk for hours about them, but fundamentally, are you using AI internally to improve your speed of development? That's one topic. Second topic, governance. Third topic, how do you use AI to sell more, not necessarily just cut costs? So that was my monologue, and I think we'll move on to the next question because we're running out of time.
I have one more. I have one more headache, and
Yes.
that's, I will be really quick about it, I promise. That's thinking that slapping AI on shitty data and insufficient processes will save your company. And we see that for many years now. And that's really not the case.
Yeah. So what you're saying is AI will not improve your data if it's already in a bad shape
Yes.
immediately. You need to actually make the effort, and AI can help. It
AI
can
can
help
help
in
with
clean
that.
up data. It can help with stuff. But if you are not as tidy as you would like with your data today, um, AI will not magically help you and understand it. It still needs your help to do it. The good news is, compared to a couple of years ago when you actually needed to hire tens or hundreds of people to tag your data and clean up your data, LLMs can now actually understand your data fairly well, or on the level of maybe like a college student who you would have hired to do this tagging. So the good news is you can do that faster and easier today than you could have in the past. So we're definitely expecting another wave of digitalization, as people used to call it.
Yeah.
Very well. All right. So the next question we have here is from Martin. Do I really need a framework like LangChain for a chatbot, or is a simple setup enough? And it's interesting what a simple setup means, but Mike, maybe you have an interpretation of
That
this.
exactly. That's like simple setup. Like yes, you can have a simple setup. You can call OpenAI directly or Gemini or whatever you want to use as an LLM. The question is again, what you are trying to achieve. Are you trying to only have some knowledge base and you want to have an interface where people can chat with that data? Or do you need any reasoning capabilities? Because the reasoning capabilities behind the chatbot do not come from the LLM itself. They come from the agentic workflows that you design. And then when you have or when you decide that you need or figure out that you need those agentic workflows and you need the reasoning capabilities of the chatbot, it's definitely better to go with LangChain or Crew AI or Llama Index or whatever. That again depends on what you are trying to do. But yeah, you definitely can go only with the basic REST calls to the APIs of the LLMs. But for if you are trying to do something more complicated, the LangChain and all the frameworks can save you a lot of headache. Because, for example, having an MCP server that you are trying to communicate with, if you have the LangChain put together, you have an MCP client there, and that's something that you need if you want to talk to the servers. On the chatbot side, you want to have the MCP client, and LangChain already has that. If you don't use the framework, you would need to do that manually, which is not really a hard thing to do, but the list adds up. It's like doing the or integrating vector databases or even graph databases. Again, it can be done. It's not that hard, but it adds up quickly.
Yeah. So again, I think this comes down to you need to know what you're trying to build. You're probably not building just a small little toy, but it's going to have
Yeah.
to fit into the broader ecosystem of your company. Hence, you need some sort of agentic workflow orchestration, which means that you need a plan, and it comes back to the headaches we've just been talking about. If you're just prototyping, please do it. Please do it as fast as possible. Try to figure out if LLMs can solve your problem now, how they can do it. But once you're moving towards something that somebody will need to maintain, Although, there are some people who say LLMs will do everything in the future and we'll just be sitting there doing nothing, which sounds more like a dystopia than a utopia to me. But yeah, it always comes down to what you're trying to do, and we're happy to chat. If you ever have any questions regarding your project, reach out to Mike or myself, either directly or directly to Vacuumlabs. We're happy to sort of help and see if it makes sense for us to work together, or at first we just sort of talk and figure out the best way forward. But unfortunately, we are out of time for today's session. But I would like to thank you all for your questions today. I look forward to the next time we do this. Any parting words, Mike? Any final thing you really want to say to people working with AI today that they should really hear from you? And I know I'm putting you on the spot, which is
Yeah,
always difficult.
that's not problem. That's not a problem. Yeah, I've been thinking yesterday about like what should be the message, and uh, stay curious, prototype, and be ready to be pulled out of your comfort zone. So working with AI means learn how to be comfortable out of your comfort zone and be resilient in that.
Yes, yes.
Thank you,
That's
everybody.
that's a, that's a beautiful message. It doesn't only apply to AI, but definitely does for everything we do every single day. Very good. Well, thank you, everyone. This was fun, and I look forward to the next time we do this.
Same. And we have on the screen some contact blah blah that like where you can find us, how you can talk to us, and we will be happy to talk to you guys next time. And if you have any further question, send us a message.